So what do we got this week, Jester?
Star Wars.
Okay, what else?
Star Wars!
What? No, but what else are we talking about?
Star Wars! Alright, greetings, fellow rewriters. It's time for the One More Rewrite podcast. And back after the Halloween break, hopefully you listened to our advice and watched some good TV, like Twilight Zone, and some good movies like Dracula or Frankenstein or some classics. Or even some of the stuff that Lunchbox recommended. Anyway, Speaking of which, I'm Jester, and to my immediate left, drinking like a fish that only drinks beer, is Lunchbox.
Hey, guys.
So, going to have some trailer news for you today, like stuff Finding Dory, yes, Star Wars, as mentioned, and other such things. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about two movies that opened up about a week, almost 2 weeks ago now, I think, when we finally get this up. It should be the Peanuts movie and the new Bond film, Spectre. And, you know, I kind of thought that they should go hand in hand. One, because they are both big-name properties.
Oh, for sure.
And they were both released on the same weekend. Definite counter-programming. I mean, you've got, like, Bond, the name in Spy is Bond. Like, there's Bourne Identity and other things that have tried, like The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but really when you think International Spy or Man of Mystery, you don't think Austin Powers, you think Bond.
Yeah, well, clearly patterned after.
And Austin Powers clearly a riff on the whole Bond series. But the latest Bond that came out, it's doing well. It's going to make its money back, obviously. And from what I can see as far as contracts go, Daniel Craig still has at least one more shot at the Bond, unless they do something funny, right?
Right, yeah, but he doesn't really want to do it, according to his...
according
to what he says, he's rather slit his wrists than do it again.
Yeah, and as we covered before, sometimes people will make statements right after they're done shooting something like, I never want to do this again, but from what people are saying review-wise, it kind of shows almost on screen that he looks like he's tired of doing this. It just wasn't like
Although, how much do you think that what he said played into their perception of that?
I don't know,
I think that the most often the comment that I saw in the reviews was, well, it's no Skyfall. Pretty much everybody said, well, after Skyfall, what are you going to do? Like, you couldn't possibly do better than Skyfall. You know, I mean, it was just on and on, review after review of like, well, after Skyfall, this left me shaken but not stirred. Like, every single critic made that exact same lame joke.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, no, I hadn't actually...
Like 100 different reviews with that same lame joke. Some variation on the shaken but not stirred.
Yeah, everybody always wants to pop in their own little pun and say, oh, I'm so clever. But it does get annoying if everybody's doing it. But I was going to say I don't know if my own kind of having read what he had said kind of plays into it. I haven't had a chance to see the movie, but I guess you would say a couple of the reviewers that I know and trust have said that, like, yes, there is it's no Skyfall. Like, it's hard because Skyfall really was good and really set the bar high. But it wasn't just the whole, like, well, he does act like he's acting tired of this. And they said also that some of the action scenes didn't feel like they had the pop that they were hoping for, and just
except for the opening sequence. The opening sequence, everybody said was is incredible. Like one of the best opening sequences.
Yes,
and then the movie just kind of fell flat after that. I saw a lot of reviews that said that. But there was nobody that said they didn't like the opening sequence. Everybody's like, the opening, the pre-credit sequence, everybody thought was awesome. So, Hey, and if you walk into the theater, just, if you happen to be going to see something else, walk into the other theater, watch the opening sequence, and then you can leave.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say, I don't think it's
2.5 hours.
It's 2.5 hours, but I don't think it's fatigue of the series or necessarily people will be bored with it. I mean, Lord of the Rings was almost 3 hours, and people saw that. I think it's more that it's just, if you don't have that kind of tight script and great acting. Well, it's not that they wouldn't have great acting, but yeah, the tightness
Daniel
of the script.
Craig, I think, is a great actor. I think that probably what he was doing is that Bond is getting weary of what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think that at this point, 24 movies in, even if you said that each of those movies was only 2 hours, you're talking about 48 hours of spy work that he's been doing.
Well, yeah. I would say, though...
I mean, how many years? 62, I think the first one came out? Years and years he's been doing this. He's probably tired of doing the spy thing, too.
Well, one of the more pointed reviews that I had read had said that they were getting tired of him looking like a wary, well-worn, like, sort of anti-hero. That he was a little too, like, okay, yes, we've seen your kind of... like beaten down by the grimness of things that you have to do, and this kind of like sodden character who's got an inner dreariness. That something with Skyfall that at least came through was maybe not joy, but at least that kind of like an inner strength there, because he fights back from like having basically almost been killed by his coworker, so to speak, in the field, and he failed all the tests that he was supposed to make it through, but he still fought back, and he was still Bond, and he still
wanted to do it.
And he still wanted to do it, and he still came through in the end, which is kind of what sets apart Skyfall, I think, from the other ones, because in the other Daniel Craig things have, Bonds, I should say, seem to have this air of, like, I'm the anti-hero, and grim things are always happening to me. Whereas Skyfall felt...
Well, certainly the Daniel Craig ones
did. The Daniel Craig ones, and Skyfall felt the most Bond-like.
Right.
Even though they didn't have, like, a pen that explodes or something, and even tried to poke fun at it.
Invisible cars.
Okay, invisible cars is over the top, but a few cute devices would have been nice, and rather than, like, a perfunctory, well, what did you expect, an exploding pen? It still annoys me that they put that in there, because it almost seems less of an aside in-joke and more of a stab at the fans, like...
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
I
I would like an exploding pen.
Nice little reference.
It's a reference, but I don't know. Anyway, before we go digressing onto that, I think that people are a little tired of Daniel Craig looking tired and world-weary.
But that's kind of the character. That's the Bond character that he's playing. That's his version of Bond.
His version, but his version also has something that previous Bonds didn't really have, which was this seemingly outstretched, interconnected story. One Bond, like Moonraker, didn't naturally, have anything to do with Live and Let's Die, let's say. There wasn't some sort of like... I think the most they ever got interconnected was, kind of with the Spectre stuff in the original Bond, where you had him against Blofeld.
But even Moonraker did have Jaws in it.
Moonraker had Jaws, but that's
Jaws
not
it came back.
Okay, yes, but Jaws coming back isn't the same as, let's say, Bond has a haunted past, and he remembers how he let this one girl drown and she killed herself, or he also remembers what happened to M in the previous movie, and da-da-da-da-da. I see what you're saying.
Which is why everybody says that Casino Royale was great and Quantum of Solace not so much.
No, people thought Quantum of Solace was terrible because the opening sequence was horribly shot. It was shot almost like a Bourne Identity film with constant movement in place of actual action.
I'll give you that, but I think that a lot of people were like, well, no, this is Bond brooding over the chick that he lost, and that's not who Bond is. I saw a lot of that when that came out.
Well, I think people are tired of brooding. I think that in comparison to Sean Connery's portrayal and Roger Moore, and yes, even that one guy that nobody remembers, including
George Lazenby.
Yeah, George Lazenby. Nobody remembers. You'll forget 5 seconds after they've said his name. Lazenby.
Lazenby.
Whatever. I don't know. Timothy Dalton, and even
Timothy Dalton. It was
Pierce
great.
Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan. But they all have different takes on it. It's like Doctor Who.
They all have different...
They're not all the same James Bond. They're not all the same Doctor Who. Everybody has a different version of it that they're doing.
But none of them have had the brooding element. None of them have seemed like I'm this dark anti-hero. They've always had that touch. Yes, they're an international spy who just blazingly murders people because they have a license to kill. But as weird and morbid as it sounds, they also have a touch of joy to what they're doing, or a touch of
wisecracking when they're killing people.
Well, they don't always need to be like throwing off a one-liner just because they tossed a guy off a cliff or something,
Well, but, in the early years, they tended to.
And I get that in our more modern, sensible era, we can't have enjoyable one-liners for some who knows what reason.
Because it takes you out of the movie.
It takes you. I know there was a whole lot of that got seeped into the last two movies that Pierce Brosnan was in, where it was just it went from like the occasional time like Sean Connery did it to Roger Moore levels of like, oh my gosh,
yes,
like we're
totally
camping at this point.
And I think Pierce Brosnan struck a nice little balance between.
Pierce Brosnan had a nice balance between, but I think.
Dalton was a little more serious. He was a little more toward the Daniel Craig version.
Yeah,
I thought Lazenby did a great job. Matter of fact, so did the people that made the movie. But then he showed up at the premiere with long hair and a beard.
He showed up looking like a hippie instead of looking like a clean-cut Bond. I know.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that even if it's his take on it, I think that people are a little. They're as weary as.
It's more true to the books.
It's more true to the books. Doesn't matter. It's more. Having learned this, unfortunately, through like the Harry Potter series.
Yeah.
Where like I absolutely hated the third movie's take on the third book. It was nothing like the book. They had hashed it to pieces. It was Alphonse Cuarón's take on Harry Potter, and most of the people who love the books didn't like the movie. Yeah. But there are people who are like, well, I've never read the Harry Potter stories, but I really loved this movie. And one, it's kind of offensive to those who are fans of the books because it's like it's nothing like the book. It's not just nothing like the book. It's
that's where you see like the people that love Bond from the books, and they go, "Yes, this is like Bond in the books."
Yes, but everybody thinks.
Except there's been 23 movies, and this is the 24th movie, and so nobody knows the books. They've only ever watched movies because nobody reads books anymore.
I know. And everybody who's watched the movies previously, though, do have like sort of preset notions of where Bond should be emotionally in his journey of killingness. I don't know. They have an idea of what they think Bond should be. And I think they could accept early years of Daniel Craig doing this kind of brooding act. Like, okay, I'm haunted. I've like sullen. I'm this, but he never. I guess you would say it feels like if they're going for the same character, he has never shown any character development. The one time he did, and that's why it makes it so good, is Skyfall. He actually showed some kind of character development. He wasn't just sitting there brooding in the shadows. He was like, no, gosh darn it, I'm Bond. I'm coming back, and to heck with you all. I'm going to get the girl.
This is what I do.
This is what I do. And to have him, from what I've heard, I haven't seen the movie yet, seep back into this kind of, no, I'm broody. It just kind of is like, dude, we're showing character growth finally after 3 or 4 films, and now you're back to being broody. It's like,
well, yeah, but it is also, from what I've read, it's a kind of a prequel story too. Like it's kind of origins of Bond.
Yeah, but I feel like that saying that now is almost like a cop out. Like you didn't just my thoughts. But here, I kind of want to mini segue this into having talked about the Peanuts movie.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do was say there's like expectations I think people have of Bond. And when Skyfall had come out, there was kind of the expectation of, cool, we're finally getting kind of the Bond movies we were hoping for. Not that they didn't enjoy the previous ones, but cool, we're seeing a shift in the tone.
Right.
And it was a shift to a tone that people were more familiar with. And to that end, going into talking about Peanuts, the movie, has done very well, despite initial concerns of them rooting the characters, because it kept the same tone that everybody was expecting. And by golly, it was a G movie.
Yeah.
Which nobody does anymore. There was one, I forget his name suddenly, Doug something, the Nostalgia Critic anyway, had pointed out something that the reason people love this film is because, my golly, it was G, and it didn't feel the need to shove in some stupid, fart gag or some swearing or something just to get that PG rating to make it have quote-unquote mass appeal, but it just stuck with basic Peanuts. It stuck with
and apparently like a lot of stuff that they just took straight out the strip.
Yeah.
And just put, like, basically Peanuts Greatest Hits into a 3D movie that apparently they actually sunk some money into, so it looks like really good 3D.
Yeah. And it's got this weird kind of animation style that's unique to the movie to keep kind of the same spirit of the comic strip. And people, because they have like that 50-plus year history of what the Peanuts are and what they think that it should look like, are absolutely loving it. And it's doing great at the box office. And it's
85% fresh.
Yeah. And it's not just
critics and people. And regular people.
Yeah. It's not just, I would say, that it's what people were kind of hoping for, but they got what they wanted. They didn't have some weird change or going some new direction, or thank God no insertion of pop songs from what I hear. Or else you'd be hearing about that if there were.
No, it's all Vince Guaraldi score.
Yeah. So they didn't screw it up. They didn't decide to take it a different direction or go some other way. And I think that not just is it counter programming to Bond, but I think in addition to that, it had roots and stuck to them that people expected. Well, maybe that's a bit of a stretch to say, but like I think that there is kind of an analogy there of like what people's expectations are and what they actually get. Right. Like people saw Skyfall, they expected maybe this one's going to be great and it's going to be just like what we're hoping for from Bond, and they don't get it, and then they're disappointed.
But still, second highest opening in Bond history.
Second highest Bond in history. I'd still say that goes all the credit to Skyfall for getting people's hopes up.
Opening weekend is always.
And opening weekend for a Bond movie, but yeah. But there was expectations there, whereas I think with Peanuts, it was more of a hope for. Because we saw the ads and we know how Hollywood treats things. I mean, for goodness sakes, the Gem movie that just came out opened to critical hatred.
Did it come out?
Gem came out. It was out. It actually is a news story that it came out and was pulled from theaters 2 weeks later. Like they gave the absolute minimum run. It was made for like $5 million and it barely crossed $2.5 million, and the studio just pulled it. But again, because they didn't stick true to the source material or to what people's expectations of what a Gem film should be.
And I don't think kids know what Gem is these days.
Apparently, though, there's enough nostalgia factor where the people who wanted to see it didn't go see it because they heard such horrible things about how it didn't do that, how it included, like, at the last minute when people said, "This isn't Gem!" And the original voice actresses and singing actresses knew nothing about the movie until, like, it started getting promoted. So, and all of a sudden they were in the film.
Oh.
Like they had ended up in there. So, and people mostly thought that that's not because they were trying to keep it under wraps. That's because they probably said, oh crap, we should include these people in some way.
Right.
As an afterthought. But anyway, back to our original point. It's with Bond and with Peanuts, I think that you get.
Well, that was my point with Bond, is that they went back to the source material. They went back to the true origins of Bond and made him more like the books. Just like the Peanuts movie is like the strips.
But at this point, Bond is no longer the books. He's the movies that people have seen. And I think that they may have gone to the comic strips for Peanuts, the movie, for good old Charlie Brown and the gang, but I think most people don't. Unfortunately, I don't think he's been in syndication for a year or two now. But people don't think of that. They think of the Halloween special, the Christmas special, or the various
TV shows that they've seen of the Peanuts.
Of Charlie Brown.
I'm sure that there's probably plenty. I mean,
I mean, I may have like a huge selection of the Peanuts gang on my shelf, but I don't think everyone does. You know.
No, but every Christmas you watch Charlie Brown.
But every Christmas people watch the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and they know and they get an idea of who each character is, and those are the expectations that they have of what they're going to see in an animated movie, and they hit those expectations. So, I don't know, just some food for thought. Maybe I'm stretching a little far to make the analogy of what people's expectations are of different things, but
I think you're pushing that a bit.
I don't care. I think the comparison's there, but tell us what you think. Please respond.
But in order to get to what you really wanted to talk about,
Star Wars. Star Wars. Oh yes, Star Wars. Yes. It is time to talk about Star Wars and Star Wars trailers and everything Star Wars related that we can think of. Well, that would just be the trailers, really, because
that's about all we know.
That's all we know at this point. You've seen like 2-3 of them new drop at this point.
Yeah, because I saw the teaser. There was the official domestic trailer. I watched the international trailer, and I watched the 60-second TV spot that just got posted yesterday.
Yeah. And it's, by golly, is it incredible stuff. I mean, I work at a local realtor now, and they have, they put the newest like, American TV spot, or not TV spot, but I should say the one that went up about half a month ago.
The domestic trailer?
The domestic trailer that has Han doing the voiceover stuff there. It's all true, all of it.
Yeah.
And by golly, it just does not get old. It cycles through, like, I would say at least 20 times a day while I'm there, and I
turn around and watch it every time.
I wouldn't get anything done if I did it that way, but I do, like, my ears perk up, I listen to it, try not to tear up every time.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. I mean, you just choke up listening to that stuff. And I'm like, finally, it's done. Hey, it's like, are you okay? Yes, it's okay. It's the Han and the Star Wars. Yes. Gentle pats on the back. It's gonna be okay. Star Wars. I don't know.
But then, and JJ said that was the last new footage that we were going to get until the movie actually came out. Was the domestic trailer, but then they released the Japanese trailer.
Yeah.
And there's way more stuff in there. There's tons more BB-8.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can just, like, give me a whole movie about BB-8.
Yeah.
And we'll watch that thing forever.
Contrary to, like, what had happened when they tried to introduce a cutesy or funny character with Jar Jar, BB-8 has this sort. Well, not only does he have that kind of toy mass marketing ability because of all the things you can do, but they actually injected personality instead of gobs of stupidity. So,
it's such a cool, like, little droid, and you're just like, oh wait, they did that practical?
And that's a practical droid. That's a practical effect. There's a little hamster guy running around. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, they did all of BB-8 as a practical effect, which just adds, I think,
Kenny
to the
Baker in there just running furiously.
In the middle of the desert. Guys, got to be sweating like a dog. Yeah. Poor Kenny. Yeah, it's just incredible. Yeah, and on top of that, then we got the TV ad, which had even more new footage.
Yeah, which extra stuff and all over the place. Oh, man, I forget which one. I watched them back to back, so I don't forget which one, but there's the one where Han hands the girl, I forget her name, hands the girl the blaster, says, here, you're going to need this. And you're just like, oh, yeah!
Yeah, it's like, it's Han, and he's doing Han things. And, yeah, I mean, like, this truly is the Star Wars trailers, at least. I don't know. The movies that we wanted to see. I still remember getting all, like, spine-tingly, like, woo, when the, when the prequel trailers were released, because we hadn't seen Star Wars around for so long.
Oh, yeah.
It was so awesome just to see
I remember sitting there when Episode 1, waiting for Episode 1 to start, and there's a bum-ba-da-bum starting, right. And then you hear dun, 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 and everyone in the crowd cheered.
Yes.
Their opening night, first show, crowd went nuts. We were so dying to watch some more Star Wars.
Yeah.
We couldn't believe it. I remember sitting there in the theater waiting for Space Jam to start and seeing the trailer for the re-release of the originals that I didn't know was going to be there, didn't know about the re-release.
Yeah.
For years, you've only been able to see Star Wars like this. Now you'll be able to see it like this. And I just went, oh, okay. I don't think I'm going to be able to watch this movie because I'm just going to keep crying this whole time.
Yeah, it's yeah, and it had that effect. And yes, the movies were kind of a letdown. The third being the okayest of the
except of course for Anakin's no at the end. Which, okay.
Which, kind of a slap to the face and ridiculous. And there's still, like, websites out there where you can just hit a little button and it has the goofy long no! But regardless of that, when the trailers came out, I don't remember tearing up really for the prequel trailers. I remember getting kind of those chills of, oh, this is so awesome. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we didn't know any of the characters, so the emotional attachment's not there at all.
Don't have the emotional attachment. I mean, really, I was excited for the new ones. I mean, finally, some more Star Wars. It's been, 30 years since the last one when it came out. It was like, wow, yay, more Star Wars. I love Star Wars. Went out and got all the toys and everything. I was so excited. But, yeah.
It's hard to... Not the same connection there.
Yeah, it's really not.
But then...
we grew up with Han and Leia and all of that.
And, well, as soon as you see Han appear on screen in the domestic trailer, you're just like, oh wow! And then you get like the music that, what is it called? The Han and Solo love theme.
Luke and Leia. That's actually the name of the tune.
Oh really? It's Luke and Leia. Okay. But or is the love theme from Star Wars? I think is how most people refer to it, because it always plays over the scenes with Han and Leia. But it's
I'm pretty sure it's Luke and Leia is the name of the tune. Anyway,
it's
maybe I'm thinking of Linus and Lucy.
You might be thinking of Linus and Lucy since we're talking about the Peanuts cartoon a few minutes ago. But it's you've got the narration of him telling you how it's true, all of it, the Jedi, the dark side, and by golly, it is hard not to choke up. We
heard stories growing up. It's all true.
All of it, and you're just like,
please let it be true.
I know, and just like talking about it, you're like, oh my gosh. It's incredible. I haven't even seen the movie, so I hope it's not as letting down. But I'll say at least this, that the trailers have hit all the right notes to get me pumped up, and not just in a fanboy way, but in a
wow, this looks like a whole lot of fun.
This looks like a whole lot of fun.
Looks like JJ kind of really understood the source material, and he grew up as a Star Wars fan, not a Star Trek fan.
That's the right way to do it.
Which is why Star Trek was a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Both of the new Star Treks were Star Wars movies. They were Star Trek movies. They totally didn't follow the same pattern or the same formula as Star Trek movies. He made Star Wars movies with Star Trek characters.
Think of them as his resume enhancers to
exactly,
to be able
because
to
he
show.
Always wanted to do Star Wars, and now he gets to, and it's going to be awesome.
And now he gets to do Star Wars. It's funny when you have that. It's funny that it seems like J.J. Abrams gets what people want from Star Wars more than Lucas did.
Yeah,
that's. I don't know whether that's both funny and sad. It probably is.
But I think that it's because he is a fan and not the creator. I think that, as a fan, he knows what a fan would want to see, and he is totally giving it to us.
Yeah.
3-bladed lightsabers?
I'm on board.
I'm on board. Let's do it.
Let's do it. You're giving us actual characters that look like they have character, not just eye candy. Yeah. And by golly, yes, there is eye candy in there. It looks like there's going to be some fantastic battles. Looks like not just your TIE Fighter versus X-Wing battles, but there's some great shots they have in the trailers of stormtroopers on this kind of barren landscape and half-ruined city thing that look like a siege is taking place. And it definitely brings a kind of dynamic that I haven't seen before in a Star Wars. The ruined city thing automatically made me think of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where they've got the garrison going on there. Yeah. I forget the name of the city across the way from Minas Tirith that they had a garrison at. But anyway, it's showing stuff not only that we haven't seen before, which is awesome, but it's showing us things within the Star Wars universe that makes sense in a landscape kind of way, I guess you would say, on how
and
that
kind
is
of I think new things that are in the style of because you have the new Sith Lord coming in there, totally looks Vader-esque. It's kind of in the style of, but not exactly the same, so you kind of go, oh, that's the bad guy, that's the Darth Vader character, that's Luke under that mask.
I know that's what I've been speculating.
It's rampant all over the internet.
But it's not.
Because you haven't seen Luke in any of the trailers.
Other than a hand on the droid, and on C-3PO. Or not C-3PO, sorry, R2-D2. And that's about it. That's your only shot of him. And he's not even on the poster either. That's something else people have been saying, where's Luke? He's not on the poster. And there is that speculation, well, maybe he is on the poster, you don't know it.
Well, that was the original idea for Star Wars, was at the end of Return of the Jedi, Luke was going to put on Vader's mask and say, now I am Vader. That was supposed to be the end of it. That was the original ending.
But
then they realized that wouldn't actually make the fans very happy about it.
Yeah.
And to have the good guy turn bad at the end. And so he decided to have this touching moment with his father at the end instead, which I guess is probably the right way to go. But if you watch it up to that point, he has basically turned evil. Like, he is using all of his fury to strike Vader down.
He's trying to strike Vader down.
He goes to the dark side at the end of Jedi.
Yeah, but you see that point where, the one part, and I've heard this theory, that doesn't fit for me is that he tosses away his lightsaber. Mm-hmm. And to show the Emperor that he's rejecting the dark side and all that. And and that more so than him speaking with Vader, because I've heard theories online where people are saying, like, see, he's sad because now he doesn't get to rule the galaxy as father and son because he did turn to the dark side. But that doesn't fit with me, because if he really was feeling that way, he would have held on to that lightsaber and run Palpatine through right there, or cut him down, like he had been planning to do. Because yes, in the movie, you see what stops him from cutting down Palpatine is Vader. He gets in his way because he grabs it. Luke totally force grabs the sword and starts to swing, and he's ready to take the Emperor down. He does give in to his hate. Yeah. Which is why there's a lot of speculation. Maybe that's why you haven't seen Luke in any of the trailers or in the poster yet, is that they're going to have a reveal. I don't think they're going to reveal him as Kylo Ren, the new dark side guy they show in the trailers, but there is definitely that open possibility that he's gone to the dark side, and to show any footage of him would reveal that in some way. Right. Other than like a hand extended and patting R2 on the side. And that's, that's all you get right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to, it's hard. Part of me wants to say, I don't want to get too hyped up because the prequels were so disappointing, but it's impossible. I love the series too much. Excited. I'm too excited for it, and too enthused and too emotionally invested, dang it, to not get hyped up about it and to not be enthused. And it is because J.J. Abrams, who is a fan, is directing it and has a heavy hand in it. And yes, there are lens flares that you see in the trailer. Of course there are lens flares. Of course there are lens flares. But even more than that, I said it before, and I'll touch on it again, is you can sense personality. Not just the established personalities that we've seen before with Luke and Leia, or Han and Leia, because you kind of catch them briefly on screen, but you kind of get a sense, and they do have narration within the various trailers that have been released that tell you a bit about the characters, other than like, I'm a slave boy from a planet. Yeah. They are trying to connect you in an emotional way with the characters, which is fantastic. It's not just CGI Jar Jar. Oh, look, there's Darth Vader is a little boy. I guess that works. Sure.
I watched the whole movie with Jar Jar. I am more emotionally invested in BB-8 right now than I am in Jar Jar.
I'm more emotionally invested with the little roll droid than I ever was with 3 films worth of Jar Jar Binks. Yeah. And that's, I guess, another further testament. So here we are. We're about a month out from the release, and here's hoping, because
Here's so looking forward to it.
The trailers look fantastic. I didn't get involved in the huge toy line rush this time around like I did with the original series. Not the original series. Pardon me, the prequels. But yeah, I'm hyped. I'm ready. I've got my tickets. As soon as that domestic trailer rolled, I got online, and I barely got tickets before it sold out that same day.
Oh, wow.
For that opening weekend is totally
biggest movie of all time? Huh. What do you think? Star Wars? Force Awakens? Biggest movie of all time?
Oh, yeah. I am hoping that Star Wars Force Awakens, I'm going to make this prediction now, that not only is it going to be that much better, and this is a bold guess to make, but I am going to assume at this point that it's going to be bigger than Titanic. Barring something I don't see happening. I'm assuming a bigger thing, and that's a big claim to make.
That's a big claim to make.
Titanic was around for almost a year from its release. Yeah. Before it left. But I think there's enough heart just in the trailers alone. That people
mighty strong words, right?
It is mighty strong words, but here's hoping. I have always wanted a fantasy film to overtake Titanic.
Yeah.
I had hoped.
And if any movie can do it, this looks like the one.
If any movie can do it, this looks like it could be it. I had hoped several years ago that it was going to be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Didn't happen. They made a good effort, but I think if anybody can overtake the Titanic movie, it'd be Star Wars.
It's going to be Star Wars. Well, and Star Wars was the biggest movie for the longest time. Yeah. So it's still, I mean, still the original ones are like in the top 5, aren't they? At least the first one is.
The first one is still up there. I hate to say it, I think even the first of the prequels I know was pretty high because the anticipation and the...
Yeah, I think top 10.
It was so high that it broke into the top 10 a lot of time. Highest box office doers. But we'll see. Here's hoping. Well, as hyped as we are for Star Wars, there were a couple other movies, I think, I don't know, some lesser incarnations out there of moviedom that have broken out trailers this past week, and those are Finding Dory and a World of Warcraft movie trailer. And I just want to talk about them very briefly because there's, well, one, not as much to say because they aren't Star Wars.
Right, exactly.
It's just... That's basically the bar for all of them. Are they Star Wars? No. Okay, moving on. But anyway, well, briefly on Finding Dory, it looks cute. I don't know that it looks like it's trying to recapture the same spirit because it starts off with Dory mumbling in her sleep about mom, and then she runs off. They catch her, they bring her back in the middle of the night, and then she runs off again, but they're not sure where she's headed to. So it is, it's Finding Dory. They're obviously on a hunt to find her. The voice acting and the animation is still obviously Pixar being fantastic.
Right, and you still got Albert Brooks and you got Ellen playing Dory.
Which I'm
really, from the trailer, it seems more like rather than finding Dory, it's Dory trying to find her family.
Yeah,
but she can't remember where to find them.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's a, I don't know, some sort of illusion or something, like Finding Dory. Dory's going to find herself and remember who she was before she ran into to Nemo and his dad trying to find their way and to each other. I don't know. Obviously, maybe not obviously, we're assuming heartwarmingness ensues, and it does have that nice Pixar animation style.
Yeah.
The question I have is anybody wanting this right now? Not that it's like, does anybody really want this, but like, when they announced The Incredibles, The Incredibles Part 2 over the past summer, there was so much online, and everybody's like, this is great, finally. It's like 15 plus years later, but yes, finally we get the sequel we wanted.
Right.
And I don't see that same kind of buzz for Finding Dory. Everybody seems to be kind of mellow on it. Like, oh, that looks nice. Hey, yeah, it looks fun.
That looks like fun.
That looks like fun. But there isn't the buzz. So I'm left sitting here going, like, can't you push up Incredibles a little bit? I mean, like, yeah, sure, people seem enthused for this, but not the level.
Well, it was when it was first announced.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago.
Finding Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Ellen announced on her show, like 5 years ago, that she was actually going to do Finding Dory.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, yay, woohoo, I want to see Finding Dory. And now everybody knows that it's coming out, so it's not this big dump of like, surprise! Everybody knew.
Yeah.
I think that part of it, I enjoyed Finding Nemo. I like it, and I thought that Ellen's character was probably the most fun in it. Like, certainly any time I quote anything from Finding Nemo, it's one of Dory's lines.
Yeah.
But escapade. That's funny. It's spelled just like escape. Escape! She was really the most fun character. Although, anytime they try and do a movie with the
fun, goofy
character and make them the star of the movie, you kind of tend to get overwhelmed with the fun goofy by about 15 minutes in, and you're like, okay, well, that was a fun time, and is there anything else on?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to see it because I do love the Dory character. I just don't know if it's going to hold up as being the main character for the movie.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking exactly what you were saying there. It's like, Dory was funny, but she was in small doses throughout the other movie, and there was a bit of heartwarmingness there. And I hate to say it, there's this part of me that says the only way they can make this work somewhat is if it gets kind of dark for Dory.
Yeah.
And it brings her to this kind of sad and really horrible place that she discovers something like her whole family's been eaten by sharks or something. I don't know. But not that I want something bad to befall the character, but yeah, I think 15 minutes in...
Shark bait. Ooh,
Yeah. If it's like constant goofiness.
The original one had the dark spots in it too.
Yeah, the original one had dark spots, but not to the point where like there's a part of me that says it'll have to be some sort of polar opposite for Dory to not get super annoying.
Although
really
it does
fast.
look like, from the trailer anyway, seems like Nemo and
I totally forget his character's
Albert Brooks' character's name.
Albert Brookfish.
Yeah, Albert Brookfish. They seem to be along for the ride, so maybe they could temper it a bit.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you got your humor and your, like, what is it, the straight man?
Yeah, you got your straight man, yeah. So as long as you got the straight man there, I think that we might be able to keep Gracie Allen under control.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll see how it pans out. It's kind of early. It's the first trailer. I think I'll have more speculation. We'll probably both have more speculation as further news and trailers drop.
Yeah, we'll have some more information. And there was another one that we wanted to mention.
Briefly, World of Warcraft. I mean,
briefly.
This game has been around forever. Well, not forever, but it's been around for at least a decade and a half at this point.
Yeah, and shouldn't you have released the movie a decade ago if you were going to put one out?
Yeah, really. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean
Does
here,
anybody play World of Warcraft anymore?
People still play it, but it does not have the same kind of, I guess you would say... Cachet and hype level of everything. I don't know. It's just
Battlefront?
It's not on people's minds as much.
I thought everybody was playing Battlefront now.
No, everybody's playing Fallout 4.
Oh, Fallout 4, right.
Fallout 4 is what everybody's like everywhere. It wasn't there. I almost hate to say it. No, just through other YouTube videos, I found out that like one of the biggest online porn sites saw like a significant drop the same day that Fallout 4 came out. So you're just like, yeah, it was enough to cause like I'm gonna have to rewatch the video, but it was funny. Like, so many people are so into this game. So, yeah, if somebody out there is making a Fallout movie, that would do gangbusters. But World of Warcraft, it's almost like if somebody put out another Mario movie, I don't know how well it would do. Mario's still in people's consciousness, so that might do well. But World of Warcraft being a massively multi-online player game, which I never really got to play, that's why I have bitter feelings towards it. No, I'm not trying to sound...
Never really wanted to play. I mean, I'm not into RPGs anyway, but...
I had wanted to try it. I got a free copy from our cousin when he used to work there. And he used to work there a while ago, so I had, like, the beta version or whatever.
Yeah, back when it was still Blizzard.
Back when it was still Blizzard, yeah.
Yeah, and not Activision.
Yeah. There's your problem right there.
Yeah, see, I think that after Activision bought it out, it kind of went downhill a bit. Yeah, for me, anyway. I kind of liked the idea of, like, the independent guys that were just, like, taking the world by storm. And then Activision came up and bought Blizzard, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, kind of. Back when Blizzard was a smaller company, it was kind of cool to see.
What was that one building, and where was it, in Irvine?
That one unmarked building in Irvine, specifically not marked because it had been this little programming company that came out with a gangbuster hit. And there was
some racing game that they did that was, like, huge.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it now.
Don't remember that because it's always been Warcraft or StarCraft. But yeah, when it used to be just Blizzard, I mean, they were a company that was turning out, like, things that had a nice, unique feel. And the key phrase here, just to wrap this up, is was. And I would even almost say that, like, Call of Duty's time has come and kind of gone.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about, like, a Halo movie, and I'm thinking, well, but Halo even seems to be a little passé at this point.
Halo's even a bit passé. There's still the fandoms. There's still
sure. I mean, there's
fandoms.
Certainly people that are interested. Certainly there are people that would show up to see a BioShock movie.
Oh yeah,
but it's how big of an audience are you really going to get for that sort of a thing?
Again, and it sounds so weird
Warcraft,
to say.
I mean, I imagine that there's probably people that would be interested in that, but it's this weird confluence of, like, the 35-year-old guy that plays World of Warcraft every night and 12-year-old kids that want to see stuff go boom.
Yeah, like big monsters and Tolkien guys fighting each other. That should be fun. But yeah, it's. I don't know that the 35-year-old fan base is there still. Like they used to play it a decade ago when they're in their 20s, and yeah, it's still something they might switch on once in a while. But yeah, the gaming world moves fast. So unless you have a property that has like long lasting appeal, that isn't. I think part of it's the multiplayer aspect of it, that everybody was really into it, and then when the next big thing came along, that was the big thing that everybody's into. Kind of like. Fallout 4 is huge now, but a year from now, I mean, people still love Fallout, but I don't think it's obviously not going to be this thing that everybody's going to be.
It's going to take you a couple years to make the movie. Like, there's just no way
that's just the turnaround time. It works in Hollywood.
You have to release it almost simultaneously with the game, and you don't know if the game's going to be a huge hit or it's going to bomb.
Yeah.
So that's like the weird thing about like trying to make a movie about a game.
Yeah.
Is that it has to be like its own new separate thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're making Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, like right after Portal, like just to wrap it up, Portal was huge a few years ago.
I would watch a Portal movie.
I would watch a Portal movie.
I haven't ever played Portal. I would watch a Portal movie because that sounds like fun.
I've watched the walkthroughs of the original game, and it's still fun to watch them because it's like you're watching a mini movie in a way.
Yeah.
And there have been fan tributes done, and I think there'll still be a market for something like that.
Although is a jumper kind of Portal?
No, not really.
Okay, well, I've never played the game, so I don't know.
And I've never played the game, but I watched Jumper, and it definitely didn't have the same kind of spirit. But yeah, it's a property that's no longer hot. And yeah, because of the turnaround time in Hollywood, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody secured the rights, like right around when the property was, really hot. And then, like, as the fandom is kind of, I don't want to say dying off, but just sort of like the enthusiasm is waning.
Yeah.
And the way the Hollywood system works, it's just like, come on, guys, we got to churn this out. We got to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the trailer, the graphics, and it just are like something you would have seen like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe even older. And not trying to knock the special effects team there, but just it feels like the special effects might get an upgrade between now and the time that the movie is actually released, but between a waning fandom and effects that looked a little bit on the non-polished side.
Watched the trailer and I went, oh, cool, a new expansion pack's coming out.
Yeah, it looks like something.
Because it looks exactly like the commercials for the World of Warcraft, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't be able to distinguish it from a commercial just for World of Warcraft rather than World of Warcraft the movie.
Yeah.
There is literally no difference between the two.
Yeah, and that is true. That's what I thought at first when I saw it, too. It's like, is this an actual movie they're making, or is this like a new expansion pack? It's like, oh, they're making a movie. That's kind of cool, I guess. Maybe I'll see it just to see.
Like, once it's on Netflix, sure.
Once it's on Netflix, that might be kind of fun. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't even have that level. I don't even have Netflix level.
Netflix level. I can watch this for free. Nah.
Yeah, what else is on?
All right, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But the movie hasn't even come out. We're over a year away, but I predict a bomb.
Yeah.
Just the interest isn't there. Guys,
I don't think there's anything left there. No fan base. So there's a fan base.
There's a fan base, but not a fan base.
But not a big enough one that would turn out to go see an animated World of Warcraft movie.
Yeah. I would go see an animated Mario movie. But that's just me. Time for TGFV. Whether you're going to watch these on video, watch them on streaming, or rent them at your local no longer existent Blockbuster, Thank God for Video represents what we think you should go out and see, if you haven't already, or just sometimes a little bit of nostalgia on things that we've enjoyed before. So this week, Lunchbox has got for us...
The In-Laws.
Ah.
The original one, not the
one remake,
with,
right?
Yeah, no, not the remake.
Good.
Don't watch the remake. Watch the original 1979 Arthur Hiller version. Stars Alan Arkin and Peter Falk.
Yeah.
Alan Arkin, of course, Academy Award winner, won for Little Miss Sunshine. He was also in Argo. I got to give you an idea in case you can't put the name to the face. Peter Falk, of course, best known as...
Well, or the dad in Princess Bride.
The grandpa in Princess Bride. Basically, Alan Arkin, his daughter is getting married, and he meets his daughter's husband's parents for the first time. They come over, and Peter Falk, as his daughter's fiance's dad, gets a little complicated because they don't know what relationship they technically would have.
Yeah.
But basically meets Peter Falk, and Peter Falk tells him these crazy stories, and eventually he invests him in helping him out with this crazy thing that Peter Falk tells him that he works for the CIA, and he's trying to uncover this plot by a South American dictator to print up a whole bunch of money to flood the entire Western world with a whole bunch of extra money so that the debt that his country owes won't mean anything. So Alan Arkin obviously is a bit skeptical of this idea.
Yeah.
But the movie progresses in such a way that it eventually gets to outlandish.
Yeah,
you know,
I was gonna say
like, if you skip directly to the dictator that's doing the Sinurwensis, hello, with his hand, you would think that this movie was completely ridiculous, which it kind of is.
I was going to say, it kind of is,
but
it's fun.
It steps you along. You know, it slowly builds up to the crazy, so that by that point, you're just like, yeah, I'm on board with this. This is the thing that's happening. You know, it's like, you kind of understand how this mild-mannered dentist ends up slowly moving to this place and gets through step by step. Like, you start in a normal place, and then things just keep getting, you know, they pile on and pile on, which I think is kind of the best way that something like that, you know, you do like a comedy that's supposed to end up in this crazy place. You have to slowly ramp it up.
Yeah.
And which is just done beautifully. Directed by Arthur Hiller, who did Silver Streak, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, so you know he knows comedy.
Yeah.
He also did Burn Hollywood Burn, which he would be very mad about me saying that because he took his name off of the film.
Because he took his name off.
He was actually director of the Screen Actors Guild at the time. And decided to take his name off of the film. So an Alan Smithy film, Burn Hollywood Burn, was actually directed by Alan Smithy. I liked Burn Hollywood Burn personally. Apparently Arthur Hiller did not. But they took his cut away from him in the irony of ironies with Burn Hollywood Burn. Anyway, I digress. Watch In-Laws. It's great. Serpentine! I
was going to say, I remember Serpentine, and I didn't know that the director had also done See No Evil, Hear No Evil, but you can definitely see that kind of style, because they start off in, it's kind of that some semi-goofy place, but then by the end of the film, it's descended into this kind of screwball madness, but it doesn't, like, suddenly take you there so jarringly that it's not fun, but it goes from...
Yeah, it doesn't just go 0 to 100. It takes you through the whole, okay, so now we're at 20, now we're at 40, now we're at 60, and finally when you're at 100, you're just like, okay, the things that are happening, sure.
Yeah, sure, a dictator with like a hand puppet type thing going on. Yeah, why not?
Sure.
I'm on board.
I'll buy it at this point. Sure, you want to have boobs on the flag. Got it, hey.
Yeah, it's totally off the wall, but it's so fun and enjoyable. It
is.
And Serpentine is the first thing that pops into my head. Gotta go back and Serpentine.
You forgot the Serpentine.
He was like, I'm not gonna go back and do that. It's great fun. If you've never seen it and only had your thoughts of seeing the movie marred by the
Michael Douglas version,
by the Michael Douglas remake that they did a few years ago, don't do yourself a favor. It was a fun movie. Go check it out. It's probably on streaming or something, isn't it?
Probably. I didn't check. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's worth a buy. If not, go to a video store they're still out there somewhere.
Or buy it on Amazon. I'm sure you can pick up a DVD copy.
A DVD copy. Look for Alan Arkin version of In-Laws. That's one of the keys.
1979. Arthur Hiller.
1979. Alan Arkin. The In-Laws. Yeah, that should be good enough search engine so you do not screw up. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And for me, for this week,
you.
I've got The Shadow. Came out in 1994. And it was directed by Russell Mulcahy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The only real movies that he produced, or I should say made, prior to this that people might recognize were the first two Highlander movies. And, tonally these are so different than those films. The Shadow is based off of the famous 1930s, 1920s. I'd have to double check here. Was it the 1930s? A radio program famously voiced, but 1930s. Yeah, Orson Welles voiced. It's kind of weird that Hollywood go back and pick this, radio drama to turn into a movie, but it's surprisingly enjoyable. It when it first came out, it only made $48 million. It had a budget of $40 million, so it barely made any kind of money back, not enough to produce sequels out of.
Right.
And even though it didn't have a total franchise feel, which you can get off of movies today, that vibe of we're not going to totally set it up, but we kind of would like it if we made lots of money on this so we could make more money with more sequels.
Right.
But yeah, it didn't really go anywhere, and the critics really didn't like it, and it's still a lot of fun. You go back and watch it, and Alec Baldwin, pre-freak out fatness days, was actually kind of fun and charming to watch. It still has some of my favorite lines, like, hey, that's a US of A you're talking about there, and that knife, which is still one of my favorite lines of all time. Anyway, the basic premise of
my favorite line is Brooks Brothers.
Something the villain is going off on this great rant, and he stops and points and says, "That's a fantastic tie. Where did you get it?" And it's goofy moments that make the movie like that. But
I just kind of step you out of it for a second, okay, we're back to it.
And
just
we're back.
Being goofy here.
Yeah, the wonderful scenery chewing villain, but still fun. Anyway, the basic in and out of it is that for whatever reason, Alec Baldwin is this. He's a drug lord in Tibet, and suddenly he's, I guess he's taken hostage by a monk who is determined to turn him into a good guy.
Yeah.
And teaches him how to use the ways of, well, not quite the Force, but basically mind control. And not just, hypnotism or anything, but almost like an ESP level of mind control. And he goes back to the States.
Gives him the power to know men's minds.
And cloud men's minds. So he can appear, well, it sounds weird to say, he can appear invisible. Basically, he befuddles people to the point that they can't see him because they don't realize that he's there. He goes back to the States. He's in New York fighting crime. He's kind of known in gang circles as one does, and it's set in the 1920s, and he's fighting crime and whatnot. And suddenly onto the scene emerges the long-lost descendant of Genghis Khan, who's determined to rule the world. He kidnaps a scientist, played by Ian McKellen, who's basically developing the world's first atom bomb.
That's Sir Ian McKellen.
Sir Ian McKellen. And, well, the guy is under hypnosis building this bomb. Alec Baldwin's character is trying to find him out. They have a lot of little interplays back and forth, because they both possess this high-level ESP mind control type stuff. Right. And it's, I don't know what to say, it's a fun romp. It just is.
It is a lot of fun.
There are some campy moments. I mean, it's got Tim Curry, wielding a machine gun, giggling like a maniac. How could it not have that kind of camp?
Love that.
And you gotta love that. It has a tone of movie that I don't think you see anymore, that at the time when people saw it, it was kind of unlike a lot of other movies. And you look at it, and I don't think I've ever seen, minus The Phantom, which is also kind of a funny, it's so bad it's good movie. But, it's not just that it's set in a different time period. It has an odd stylistic feel that's just, okay, we're trying to have fun here. Kind of adventure movie. And not like a Indiana Jones adventure movie, but just overall, we're
kind of more like Dick Tracy, but didn't take itself quite so seriously.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dick Tracy, but wasn't taking itself so seriously.
Yeah.
It was just fun. I think I've said this in previous podcasts, where there's a decided lack of fun in some movies that are supposed to be a romp, but you just don't get that, hey, we're all having a good time here. Even the villain's having a good time. I'm going to take time out of my long-winded I'm going to rule the world speech to ask you where you got that fantastic tie.
Yeah.
Or a scene-stealing moment with I still think the CGI on the knife, this animated knife that can come to life and stab people, or is it in their mind? It still looks freaky and still is kind of cool to see. I think it was like a mixture of hand puppet and CG.
I'm sure, it had to be a mixture of the two.
Seeing as it was in 94, it was practical and CG mix that still looks good to this day. But I don't think you have quite the fun level in some movies that are trying to be fun these days, but the Shadow, I think it's worn well. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I just have a soft spot in my heart for it. I remember seeing it opening day. I remember seeing it, like, it was like a week or so after school had gotten out for the summer, and I was like, I want to go see something fun, and went and saw The Shadow, and it was fun. It was packed. It is fun. It's well worth your time. If you haven't seen it, or you have somewhat like, oh yes, it was kind of a dumb movie. It's like, well, a movie doesn't have to be, high-level intellectualism all the time.
Sometimes you just want a dumb movie.
Sometimes you just want a dumb, fun movie. And I think this fits the bill perfectly. It doesn't ask a whole bunch from you, and it just sits and says, hey, let's have some fun together. But anyway, that's my TGFB for the week. It's The In-Laws, the original In-Laws from 1979, starring Alan Arkin, and Peter Falk. And The Shadow came out in 1994, starring Alec Baldwin, Sir Ian McKellen, and of course the wonderful Tim Curry.
Yep.
And of course I got to mention John Loney as the Shiwan Khan, last descendant of Genghis Khan, who just turns out fantastic. You got to have a fun villain. I just want to say that too. He's a fun villain.
Great. And I totally forgot to mention that James Hong is also in the original In-Laws as the flight attendant that basically explains all of the flight rules in Chinese while Alan Arkin sits there befuddled, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie. And so, yes, definitely, if only for James Hong doing the flight introductions. Watch it for that.
Alrighty. Whether they had an unsatisfying ending, fell apart in the middle, or were horrible from the get-go, these are movies that needed a rewrite, where we showcase some shows that we would like to do a little tweaking to, or rewrite from the bottom up. This week I've got Atlantis, The Lost Empire, starring the vocal talents of Michael J. Fox, James Gardner, and the late great Leonard Nimoy. This 2001 hand-drawn animation movie did make some money, but it was far from the blockbuster success that Disney usually enjoyed. It had fast action, unique and eye-catching animation because Disney knows how to do animation, but they weren't enough to save it from what I felt was kind of a weak plot, no character development or character arcs that went nowhere, a villain that seemed too cartoony even for animation, and an unsatisfying story ending. So, just break it down really quick, what I mean by all that. It's, okay, the animation was there. It was fun. It was quirky. It was different than what they had done before, which I think that's one of Disney's strengths, is they never really do the same animation style twice. Mm-hmm. They might refine and perfect or do a slight, variation here or there, but it's never quite the same. They never say, let's mimic this perfectly, unless you're talking about like one of their daily TV shows.
Right.
But when it comes to the big movies that are the wheelhouse, they try to make it look, you obviously have a movie, you want polish to it and everything. And it was well polished. It had, like I said, some action that was just great, and explosions and stuff on screen that looked fantastic still to this day. It had a nice mix of animation that was hand-drawn with, like, CGI, like submarines and whatnot going on. So it had the kind of steampunky art design as well, with some of the vehicles that the crew uses. Anyway, to give a brief overview of the movie itself, basically, Michael J. Fox stars a young man who has, I guess you would say, high ambitions of finding the lost continent, or lost land Atlantis. And this guy, Milo. Yeah, it's Milo. Milo James Thatch. He wants to go out and hunt it down. It was like something that his late grandfather had pursued all his life, and his colleagues thought he was insane, and now Milo is a professor of linguistics, and he thinks he's figured out how to find Atlantis. And through a quirky set of circumstances, he basically gets the funding and the equipment he needs to go and find Atlantis. Now, the problem is yes, they find Atlantis. It's hidden underground. There's some great power that has caused them to be squirreled away from the rest of the world and saved them one day, because you get like kind of a preview at the beginning of the film that some great cataclysm had befallen Atlantis, but a portion of it was saved through a magic, mysterious, whatever power source that they don't quite fully explain. But I think, and that's part of the problems start there, is the mystery power source never gets fully explained. You kind of get this Gaia Earth feel thing, but never an explanation that I don't want to say logical or whatever. It could be magical and fantastical, but they never settle on it. They never call it that. And because it doesn't like have that some of those basic things where they explain something.
Fairies dancing on a crystal. I don't care what your explanation is.
Yeah, fairies dancing on a crystal. I want an explanation. And because things weren't fleshed out like that, that's kind of how the whole movie is. There's like things you don't get to see that are a little bit more... Even in older Disney cartoons, you still have a little bit of insight, like Snow White. Her evil stepmother is trying to kill her because she wants to be the fairest in the land. Like trying to think of something else. Scar wants to rule the kingdom.
Yeah.
And this one, the bad guys are partially made up of the quirky, they briefly have the quirky, fun-loving cast that goes down to hunt down Atlantis with them, turn into their mercenaries, and they really have dark motives, but then they turn good again just as fast for whatever reason, because they don't want to harm the people of Atlantis, because the power source is their life source. And again, that's also not made as clear as maybe the writers of it thought they had. And for all that, the animation never sags. I mean, the character motivation is kind of flimsy. I mean, the only person who's really set out as the bad guy is James Garner's Commander Rourke, who basically has the evil thing of being too capitalistic or whatever. Like, he wants to steal the power source and sell it for money. And it just seems like, well, that's kind of a cop-out. I just want to get rich.
Well, how many Bond villains just want to get rich?
Just
I only want to rule the world. That is my one goal.
My one dream is to rule everybody else. It felt out of nowhere.
I just want to be the most powerful human being in the universe. I mean, what's so outlandish about that?
Yeah, but it did. It seemed too cartoon villainish. Like, all of a sudden, I'm evil, by the way, and I'm here to steal the power source and get money. And it just you didn't have any kind of build up except for maybe one sidelong, sideways comment about yes, we hope it's a profitable venture.
Yeah.
And up to the point that the villain suddenly reveals himself, you show the cast, him and the side character mercenaries that suddenly aren't mercenaries but go back to being good again. They have a tender moment where they mourn their fallen comrades that died hunting for Atlantis, because there's a whole lot of death in this too.
Yeah.
They go down with a huge submarine and dozens of smaller vehicles, and only about out of the 1,000 or so people that go down, only 100 make it so to Atlantis. So there's
if that.
It's a handful.
We get a handful on screen.
Yeah, but then later on you see a bunch of people materialize. Rourke's army just appears out of nowhere. Suddenly goes from having 30 or 40 people to he has 100 other people that were stashed in the wings somewhere.
Yeah, everybody comes flooding onto stage. Where would all these people come from?
I thought you all died. It's hard because the animation was so good and so consistent. But, yeah, it was just all over the place, and it doesn't hold up. I've watched it several times now, trying to see, is there a key moment? Because there are films where you have, that key scene or moment or second where you're and this is where it falls apart. But it's just, from the get-go, it's just kind of all over the place. I see what they were trying to do, and it mimics so many styles of interpretations and whatnot. You've got like steampunk going on. You've got this electro thing going on. You've got stuff that reminds you of Stargate, which was popular at the time. You've got kind of sci-fi modern stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
You've got Leonard Nimoy, whose voice sticks out like a sore thumb, who's well known as,
Yeah.
Spock. And yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know how I would fix it other than maybe as fun as they were. The side characters were so enjoyable. It's hard to imagine the movie without them.
Yeah.
Goofy, quirky characters. Is pare them down so that everybody else can be fleshed out. Because there's a scene where they're sitting in their campsite, like, because they're underground and whatnot, and they can't make it all in one glorious cutscene.
Right.
They have to have an overnight scene where everybody kind of gives exposition on who they are and their backstory. Right. And it's nice and all. It's it's animation, so you kind of expect a certain degree of laying it all out for you. Yep. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so we get this little 20-second, 30-second window explanation of who they are, but you don't really think of them as people.
No.
And they are people. These aren't like talking, singing bears, frogs, and whatevers. These are...
Yeah. Humanoid characters.
Humanoid characters, and they just don't feel real. They feel like the cartoon characters that they are. And they could be that if they wanted, but I don't know. You have like the doctor or the explosion expert or the demolition expert. He's specialized in explosions. The Latina boxer / mechanic lady, right. the chain smoking whatever, the mole man, did I already mention the crazy doctor? Like, what am I up to? 6 side characters that are each given like 20 seconds in the limelight to explain who they are.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would pare them down. That's the only way I could think of having
and
watched it.
And all obvious tropes.
And all obvious tropes, too. I'm like, here I am. My name is generic character number 3. I'm a demolitions expert who suddenly decided one day that I like explosions more than I liked... He was like a flower shop owner or something like that in the past. Which, he's one of the few characters I'd keep because he had possibilities.
Yeah.
Everybody else felt kind of like a trope.
Yeah.
But anyway, the only thing I could think of was pare down people and flesh out others, because as it was, there's so many people and so much going on that it's hard to care about any of it. It's kind of neat, but there's no MacGuffin.
Right.
So.
Right. Just out of curiosity, you ever watch the sequel?
I watched part of it. It was just not... No.
It was not up to par?
It was not up to par with a movie that was already all over the place, and truthfully, I dozed off partway through, and I usually don't doze off during movies I haven't seen, but I just kind of lost interest.
Okay.
So, I don't know, have you seen the sequel?
I did when it came out, and I don't remember it at all.
Okay. There again, some sort of weird thing with the same kind of basic themes of, like, there's this power source or something that the bad guy wants to get the hold of for... whatever reason.
Yeah, it seemed like basically a retread of the first one, and just wasn't as... Well, the animation wasn't as good, so it's just like, okay.
It was a retread of the original with not as high-quality animation, so really the thing that I thought was one of the highlights of the film, which was the high-quality Disney animation, looked like direct-to-video animation, which it was. But, and not to knock the direct-to-video market, there's some really great direct-to-video animation stuff, but it just... Is that clear when I say that? That it doesn't that it had a direct feel, direct to video feel.
Understand.
Okay. So, what do you got for this? The only way I'd save that is by rewriting or writing out the characters. What would you change, and what movie would you change?
This week I'm going to go with Space Jam.
Oh yeah, roll down the Space Jam. Yeah, that's all I remember.
Which no, it's hit 'em high, hit 'em high, hit 'em high, hit 'em low, hit 'em low. Come on.
Okay. Yeah.
The Monstars anthem. I love that song. I still love that song. It's on my playlist. Anyway, Space Jam, of course, became back into the news because there was this wild rumor that somebody made up that they were making a Space Jam 2, and this time it's starring LeBron. Which every couple of years they come up, there's this wild rumor that they're making a new one with whoever happens to be the biggest basketball star at the time. And, none of it is true. Don't pay attention to any of it.
Yeah. Until you see that first trailer. Even then question it, because it might be a fan trailer.
Even then question it. Unless you see it in front of a movie. Which brings me around to the biggest thing about Space Jam when it was released, was that it had exclusive rights to be the one that had the trailer for the re-release, or the release of the special edition of the Star Wars movies.
Oh, really?
It actually,
you were saying earlier that you'd seen it in front. I didn't know it was exclusive to it.
It was exclusive to it. They had the first 2 weeks that you could only see it by going to see Space Jam.
Smart.
Yep, it was pretty good. And it's definitely the thing I remember most about seeing the movie. So.
I was going to say, the thing I remember most about Wing Commander was it had the exclusive rights to the first Episode 1 trailer.
Yep.
For the same deal, first couple of weeks.
Exactly. It's the only reason we watched them. But anyway, going back to Space Jam, the actual movie part of it, it's enjoyable. I certainly liked it. I thought it was fun. You get to see your loony characters, and those are all fun. I think that the couple of problems with it, Joe Pytka... more than that. Joe Pytka directed it. He's most famous for directing Michael Jackson videos up to that point.
Yeah.
So he had the Looney Tunes stuff was shot in such a way that it was, hey, look, this is 3D Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And was just shot from these weird camera angles and stuff to try and show, hey, look, this is as you've never seen them before. But
Roger Rabbit.
yeah, exactly. Except that Roger Rabbit wasn't even done in that 3D style.
No, it wasn't.
But Space Jam didn't pour enough money into it to really get that great 3D look like the new Peanuts movie has.
Yeah.
It just didn't get there. And you're shooting Looney Tunes from weird angles, which you don't need to do.
No.
And then all of the live action stuff is shot really flat. Like they should have shot all of the cartoon stuff. It's there's no reason why you've got the camera flying around in cartoon space, and then in real space, the camera not moving around.
Yeah.
Either don't move the camera. Keep it consistent or put the camera still for the Looney Tunes stuff, and then live action stuff, you move the camera. You've got to kind of, didn't make sense at all. They tried to, at the time, make the new Babs Bunny, don't call me babe, try to make her this new character. Rewatching it, she's barely in it.
I was gonna say,
they don't reveal her until halfway through the movie.
Yeah, really.
But my biggest problem with it, is the basketball. Sorry, I should probably give you a little bit of... So, there's this alien planet with a amusement park called Moron Mountain. Obvious little dig at Disney there.
Yeah.
Called Moron Mountain. That needs new attractions to try and bring people in. So, the head guy, played by Danny DeVito, decides that he needs to get some new attractions, so he steals the Looney Tunes. He's got Bugs and Daffy and everybody. Porky Pig, all of them. And steals them into slavery on his mountain. They con him into winning their freedom if they can win a basketball game. So they go enlist the help of Michael Jordan, his Airness, to help them out. And the movie just fawns all over Michael Jordan. Not that Jordan is not great, but just gushing over Michael Jordan. Even, his playing baseball, and he's got people well, he sure looks good in a uniform. Can't teach that. Yeah. And it's just fawning all over Jordan the whole movie, which in some respect is amusing. But anyway, so they enlist the help of Jordan to win. The little tiny mucklucks decide to transform into the giant monstars basketball team, which they do with the help of their magical basketball.
I was going to say a magic basketball that steals people's powers.
That they get all of these great basketball players to touch this, Patrick Ewing and, various other ones that I can't name right now. Get them all to touch the basketball. They steal their talent, and then they become the Monstars, greatest basketball players ever. There's my problem. They stole the talent.
Okay.
And this is a movie kids are going to go see. I don't like the idea of teaching kids that talent is a thing. Now, certainly, you may have a genetic predisposition to be able to be a little bit better at some things. Certainly, I can't dunk a basketball as well as Michael Jordan, but he's a foot taller than me.
I was going to say.
Like, he's got these long, lanky limbs that help him be able to do that, and he's a foot taller than me. There may be a genetic predisposition. But what really makes him good at playing basketball is that he practiced forever at basketball.
I was going to say.
That's all he did was play basketball so that he would be good at it. And I think that what should have been in the basketball is practice. They stole all of the practice. So now they can't play basketball because they're back to when they first picked up a ball. And now they have no idea what movement to do, what to do, how to move. Makes way more sense in the context of the movie.
Yeah.
And then you get to teach kids, if you practice, you can get better at things. You don't just have to be talented to be good at things. I picked up a saxophone and tried to play it. Oh, I guess I don't have that talent. Like, well, maybe you should try learning your scales. Maybe if you practice the scales for a while, you'd become good at it. I like the idea of kind of putting that kind of subliminal idea into the movie of, you practice enough, maybe you'll be good at something. I don't like the idea of talent being the thing. Because I don't, there may be some small amount of, you kind of, like, okay, the first time you picked up a basketball, you kind of, like, knew that you needed to move your hand over a little more to the left than the guy that's standing next to you. Maybe you had some kind of, instinctual understanding of that. But at the same time, you still needed 10,000 hours of doing it before you were any good at it. It's not, talent is maybe a raw place to start at the very most. I wanted practice in that ball. I wanted to tell kids, practice.
Practice, hard work. That's how you get there. Not just like, poof, and I'm there.
Yeah, and I'm there. I'm talented. I can throw basketballs in. I just was born being able to do this. Like, no, it's not true. Practice. Do your schoolwork, kids.
Yeah. And I see what you're coming from. I was waiting for the goofy poor plot of the fawning of Michael Jordan to be what was the...
It annoyed me a little bit, but I found it amusing.
And to be fair, they also do kind of make fun of it themselves. They show the pitchers saying, like, I'm going to throw it underhanded. Okay, he's going to do a fastball next. They're trying, because they all love Michael Jordan to a nauseating degree. They're willing to cheat for him and to show him, like, what they're about to do just to help him out because it's Michael Jordan. Right,
yeah. And I think that they do it to such a disgusting degree that you can kind of go... Okay, the movie's kind of making fun of that.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of wink and nod, and, we know we're doing it. We know we're fawning all over his airness.
Yeah, a world ruled by Michael Jordan.
And yeah, sure, that's kind of, there's certain, there's other things in there of, like, there's a few crude jokes I didn't think that they needed to throw in, and not that I have any problem myself with crude jokes, but, it's supposed to be a family film.
Yeah.
I didn't really need that. And it's Looney Tunes. They don't go there. So
I never understood that. Like, at what point maybe part of Space Jam was it? I don't know. I know somewhere in the early 90s that became a thing where cartoon movies or kids movies had this weird, like, we're going to have slight crudeness to them.
Like, it had a little crude element. I don't know. I don't
know. Yeah, I don't get it. If you're making something for the whole family, can't you do it on a smart level instead of resorting to fart jokes or things like that?
It didn't need it. But, that's what still wasn't my biggest problem with it. It was the...
Stolen talent.
Stolen talent, not stolen practice. Should have been stolen practice.
No, I get you. So there we go. Movies that need a rewrite be Space Jam and Atlantis the Lost Empire. Check them out if you care and see if you agree with our opinions. Time now for Strained Metaphors with Lunchbox.
Jack not name, Jack job! So often, I'll get referred to by the company name rather than my actual name when I'm speaking to people on the phone. And it kind of bothers me a little bit that people refer to me by my job rather than me. You're not your job. Don't, obsess about that. Don't obsess about work and making sure work gets done. There's many things that happen outside of work that make you a whole person and make you a much more interesting person. So, rather than focusing on your job, next time somebody asks you, what do you do? Tell them, I can solve a Rubik's Cube.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us here at the One More Rewrite podcast, and we hope we've solved a few movie mysteries, whether they were good, bad, or some info you wanted to hear. Thanks again for joining us, and for Lunchbox.
Good night.
I'm Jester. Toodaloo.